Next time I'll get it right, but for now I'll stay right here where I belong.
You have an amazing opportunity, young generation, to rise above and be proud of the choices you're making and get out of a codependent culture and be responsible for you and work harder in your life than anyone else ever will.
What do you want? What do you want out of your life? Where do you want to go? If no one else will fight, I'll be the one. I'll be the one to step into their world. I'll be the one to walk with them.
And I mean it more than you'll ever know.
Some people will ghost you, well then maybe they're not real friends. At some point in time in your life, you are gonna have to come face to face with yourself.
Next time I'm getting it right. Will you believe me if I say this is the last time?
Then she points at me and she goes, there's greatness inside of you. Sometimes we need people to believe things for us until we can believe it for ourselves. Because I look at what I'm doing now and it's not lining up with what they said I couldn't do. And now I'm doing everything that people said I couldn't do. Because now I travel the world and I share my story.
Next time I'll get it right, but for now I'll stay right here where I belong.
And by the time I was 26, I was sitting in 30-day inpatient treatment for alcohol. My family wanted nothing to do with me, couldn't hold a job. I was codependent, all because I thought I could get away with it. I should probably have about 10 DUIs, I only have 2. My last one was June 24, 2010. That was the DUI that changed my life.
For it to hurt more, to stay the same. When I get through this storm, I'll find it on my own. And I'll mean it more than you'll ever know.
And so I'm going to talk about connection and belonging. We're looking for a place to belong where someone can come out and say, hey, we want you here. I want you here. We want you around. We say we live in such a connected world. If that's the case, if we really say we're more connected, then why is everybody more depressed?
There's no dumb kid, there's no worthless kid. There's only kids that have been starved of love and have been wounded so badly, we're just looking for a place to lay. We can't change the history, but we can help shape their future.
Next time I'm getting it right.
Take one thing that you want to focus on to overcome in your life. Take one thing at a time and walk through the process. The process is only a process if one stays in it. If you don't stay in the process, then it's no longer a process. Josh Walker is here with me again, and I love having conversations. But, you know, he asked a question of, you know, people say, well, you say you're open to things, but why aren't you open to changing your view on what you believe when it comes to God? And the answer to your question is because we've experienced it. We have literally went from death to life. We were in a position to where we didn't have hope. We didn't have light. I mean, I don't know if you grew up in the church. I don't know your story there, but I didn't. And I grew up I was 26 years old before I really heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. Sure, I went to Catholic church and catechism, but I didn't understand the God that I was presented to me at a young age. I felt like it was a thing that was for a certain group of people. And I believe that was a lie that the enemy tried to sell me early on, is that was for those people and this isn't for you, which makes sense. Because when we tasted and saw that the Lord was good, like it says in his word, we took it and ran with it. Yep. And we're the type of people that at the other side, when we were in the world doing our thing over there, we took it full tilt. So what do we think is going to happen when we get in this world? We're going to take it full tilt. And so the reason why we're not open to anything different is because we've experienced the Lord, and he encountered our hearts, and he changed our lives. I was actually talking to Chelsea about this a little bit earlier today, and was talking about, you know, because a lot of people think when they get to Christianity, they're just automatically going to get things. And all of a sudden, things are going to start happening. It's going to be amazing, and whatever it is, right? But the biggest thing, she goes, yeah, you did get something, and he saved your life. And I said, yeah, and that was enough for me. It's not enough for some, but that was enough for me because I was trying to clean up my life. And so that's why we're not open to, we've seen it. We know what the other side is. We are blind, right? How can you explain how you went from the place you were in to having a crazy heart, all about yourself, not thinking of anybody, completely down and out, addicted, I'm sure you were at one point in time or whatever it is, to now, dude, it has pretty much turned all the way around, right? Like, can you explain that? I can't. It's supernatural.
Supernatural. Yep, absolutely.
You know, I don't know. I can tell you what happened. I can try to explain it the best way that I know how, but I can't exactly tell you what happened. Like, I can tell you like the events, but I don't know the exchange. There was an exchange, you know, and that's all I know, you know.
I love bringing it back to the last episode that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And we talked towards the end. You brought it back around to love, and you started talking about what love is and kind of our standard in which we as Christians would view ourselves. And so our value within this chapter of love in First Corinthians, what was it? First Corinthians
13, 4 through 8.
Yep, exactly.
And there's more, but
and love is kind. Love is not self-seeking. It does not it keeps no record of wrong. It so on and so forth, right? And in the world, I think we look for that love. We long for that love. Our eyes we're constantly scanning to see if something can meet those standards. And sometimes we try to find it within relationships. We try to find it within, looking for love in all the wrong places, right? In that sense. And it can get to this place that you, at the end of the day, haven't found that standard of love. And so when we talk about the encounter that we have, the reason why we are what we are, the reason why we believe what we believe is because it's not because we're psychotic. It's not because, just to be honest, it's not because we had nothing better to do on a Sunday, that we decided. It's because there is this supernatural, as you mentioned, change that had, or thing that had taken place. Growing up, I went to church almost every Sunday. My mom and dad brought me to that. And, one minute I'd see, tears in my dad's eyes, and the next minute we'd live a normal family life, and there'd be dysfunction. And I was confused at what true love was.
Absolutely.
And there was a lot of dysfunction. I dealt with, my mom at the time was an alcoholic. My dad was into drugs. My mom was constantly in a ditch in different places throughout the year, and never knew. It'd always be a different place. We'd have to go and find her. Never knew if she was dead or alive. But when she was in her right mind, she would say she loved me. Obviously, the feelings that you get, the trauma that you deal with, trying to compare that with the fact that, I was raised on, going to an Assembly of God church and seeing them live one way and different another way. And I was confused, man. And so there was many times that I cried out, hey, Lord, if you're real, change all of this, change my life, change this. I have no idea what to expect. And so I think there's many things involved in that where I have two older sisters, and they were put in foster care at a young age. And so I kind of lived life on my own, started doing my own things. And again, looking for love in those different areas. And it led me to doing drugs at a very, very, very early age. My sisters got me involved in smoking at 5, smoking cigarettes at 5, and thinking of how if I even saw my daughter do something like that, it'd be absolutely crazy. Right. And to selling drugs at 10 years old and all sorts of things that happened that I shouldn't have had to ever go through. So again, to not really know love and, or even have the ability to trust that from someone. So I do remember, I was 14 years old, and there was this kid who long story short, I ended up going to this youth group, one of those things that my family really wanted me to go to. And so I just did it just because, It was one of those things.
Oh,
And
I remember.
this kid, Isaiah was his name, and he would constantly try to interact and talk with me, and I didn't want nothing to do with him. I was pretty
Right.
closed off from religion and from God and from everything else. And but I had no other friends. You know, this kid would always stop at my house, knock on the door. Hey, how's it going? How you doing?
Yeah.
Do you want to hang out? No, I don't want to hang out. You know, that's got, you know,
Right.
that kind of thing. So, but this was consistent, and it was day after day, week after week. I'm not kidding. Almost 7 days a week. He lived down the road, so it was easy for him just as he's going by
Shoot
the
over,
house, you
yeah.
know, just shoot over and say hi to me. And after a while, I became curious.
Yeah. Come on.
Bringing it back, you know,
Bring it back.
I
Curious.
became curious. So I did start asking him questions.
And it opened your world up to a whole new world of possibilities.
Absolutely, it did.
And it changed your life.
And it changed my life. And, you know, what the scripture says is that we will know the love, they will know that we're Christians by
By our love.
by our love. And
Yep.
I actually saw something in this guy, someone who was curious about my life enough to be consistent and not
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
you know, knocking on the door. And not just out of that place, you know, asking him questions. Why are you the way that you are? And obviously, you know, he shared his experiences. He shared his understanding of the love of God. And it's one of those things that I had to come into that revelation of that, you
Yeah.
know. And there were a few times I remember that he we went to youth group, he prayed over me, and I felt something different.
Come on.
I felt this shame kind of being lifted
Yeah.
off. And of course I would try to hold the guilt, and I would try to hold these things to myself because I was into the things I was into, and my family was dysfunctional, and
Yep.
why would God want anything to do with me?
Right.
And those sort of things. And it's you know, that I felt him actually say, I love you. And that wrecked me. That changed my life.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a lot to that story. I won't get into it because I don't
Sure.
want to steal your show,
No, you're good.
Bobby. But there's,
My show,
but
man.
yeah, it's just great because this is one of those things that if you're not curious, you miss the opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You miss the opportunity to advance in your own life and
Yeah.
your relationships.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
Right. Well, and that's what's awesome, man, is, you know, the cool thing about it is, you know, there's so many people out there that think that if you become a Christian, all of a sudden your life is boring. Dude, my world is amazing and super adventurous all the time. Like, I have seen the world in ways I would have never seen, even playing football. Back when I played football, it seems like such a lifetime ago now. It's so long ago. But I wouldn't have seen the world like I've seen it now. I've been to 2 different countries. I've been all over, and I know this is just getting started. Like, I know there's way more to come. Like I absolutely do. But that's the thing about it, man, is like, but what you break it down, when you really break it down, we encountered love. We encountered the supernatural, the reckless love, right? We talk about the reckless love in Corey Asbury song, the reckless love of God. That's what we encountered. Mine was on the west side of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, sitting on a couch. And my life to that point had been a wreck. I was sober, but man, the wreckage that was left over from that life, like, dude, I struggled so bad with my self-worth and thinking that I could even have a future. And then I encountered the living, breathing God. And that changed everything. Everything. You know what I mean? And to this day, man, like, I am thankful. I am thankful that I encountered him. I am thankful that he saved my life. I am thankful that he gave me a second chance. And I'm thankful that I've, you know, sure, I've been set out to do something, but doesn't mean that's who I am. That's part of who I am, but who I am is his son. And that's why we don't waver. That's why there's nothing. That's why there's nothing. That's why kids say, Bobby, why do you care so much? You don't even know us. It's because I know one that does. I know God who cares so much. And he cared before I even knew him. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, he loved me. He made me. And at the end of the day, that's what we experienced. So
Yeah.
that's why. Like, that's why we don't waver. That's why I'm not open to anything else, because I've seen it. Like, you know, I've seen the truth now.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence is there. It checked out. So that's why. But yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, and I'll
Yeah.
preface it to first say last week I talked a little bit about sometimes the
2
insecurity.
weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. A little bit about the insecurities that we can have of trying to clean our own stuff up. I actually had a story of me having 4 kids, and sometimes
Yeah.
we clean a mess and we turn around and there's another mess that's on the
Yeah, I
ground.
remember
And
that.
sometimes for me as a father, I can feel embarrassed either for myself or for my kids, to the point where sometimes I shut people out and don't allow them to help in certain circumstances because, it's my mess and I should have to clean it up, and rather than inviting people in. And so we were just basically talking about, people being able to, come over and invite them into community and connection. And I miss that connection
Yeah.
when I close them out.
Sure.
So what would you say to a generation with these kids, right? And we talk about our stories and,
Yeah.
and kind of where we've come from and where we've been. And you do this all the time, and you're really great at sharing these things. I think we live in a generation where kids are afraid to be curious because of the mess that they may have endured
Sure.
in their life, trauma that they may have come across,
Yeah.
or even in their personal lives.
Yep.
On that. So I guess the question for you is, what would you say to these kids, right, that feel like they, know they don't have it together, and that's fine. So yeah.
Well, it starts with, so one thing you got to know is we're going to always attract what we are. Okay? Like what's inside of us, that's what we're going to attract. And so the biggest thing is understanding that when our pain is poking out, when our wounds are poking out, if we don't deal with them, like it comes back to what I've been talking about this whole time in this whole podcast, from the time it started almost a year ago till now, is when you decide to live with wounds and you decide to say, I'm not going to do anything about this, you're only going to attract the people that have the same thing as you do. And so partly there's 2 things that I believe this young generation is looking for. The first one is love. 3 things, actually. The first one is they're looking for love. And the love that they think that they're looking for is actually not the love that they find. Okay? They think that, look, if I search this in a person, it's going to happen. But what it really comes down to is they're looking for the supernatural love of God. They just don't know it yet. My thing is, if we're made in his image, then we're made to want his love. So let's start there. The second thing they're looking for is connection. They want to connect. They want to belong to something. Okay? And then it leads me to my third. It's the sense of belonging. They want to know that they're accepted. And so I would say is you have to find the people that understand what you're looking for, and you have to find the people that have gained what you're looking for.
That's good.
And then they can give you what you seek. Not to be that thing for you, but to help come alongside to help you get that thing that you need to walk it out. Not so much as feel my need, do it for me. No. But people have things that they can impart to you that if you decide to take that and run with it, that will become what you become. So that's the answer to my question. I love you all. Josh, thanks for coming on, buddy. This is amazing.
Appreciate you, Bobby.
What's that?
I said I appreciate you, Bobby.
You got to cut out that. Love you all. Again, you're going to be okay. So much gold inside of you. You're going to walk the greatness outside of you. Keep living whole and full life. Keep climbing, and I'll see you next time.
Next time